to me, there's three types of values in this market. There's what I believe it's worth, there's what an appraiser is going to think it's worth, and there's what a buyer's willing to pay for it. And I think when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, we're in the market now where it's what is a buyer willing to pay for it.
After latest reports on the economy and the Fed's recent moves, we're seeing rates drop to levels we haven't seen since February. If you've been holding out for a sign, this just might be it. Stay tuned and find out.
This is the Just One More podcast starring Chris Jacobs and Carlos Kopszywa.
All right. Welcome to episode 11 of the Just One More podcast. First and foremost, I think I speak for both of us when I say we appreciate the hell out of all the people watching this. I know you got so many other podcasts to choose from, and you probably still listen to them too, but you have choices, and we really appreciate y'all following along. So make sure you click the subscribe button, like the videos, share the videos, comment with things you want to talk about. We do have a couple of things that some people brought up that we're going to talk about today. As you all know, I am Chris Jacobs.
And I'm Carlos Kopszywa.
I love the hands.
I always talk like that. I have like no idea why.
It's presidential.
I watch all my like other videos and stuff like that. I'm always doing that.
You just watch a lot of like Trump.
I probably watch Trump too much.
Too much of my
It's just an amazing thing that he does.
I don't know what to do with my... Anyways, okay, so...
Yeah. Ricky Bobby, is that what it was?
That was a very great movie, actually. All right, so we're going to get into some topics here. We're going to talk... This is going to be a little real estate heavy, and then later on we're going to get into some election talk and some veteran talk and even some sports stuff. But more importantly, a lot of people noticed last week rates did a little dropsy-loo. They went down to, I think, they were
threes, right?
Well, if you do a big ass buy down, yeah, you got threes. But rates did drop significantly, actually, almost a half a point. I think we're looking at somewhere around 6.4, 6.3 for conventional. Now, disclaimer. This is all based on credit approval. This is all based on all the variables having to hit certain metrics. I am not a lender. He is not a lender. This is just kind of where we're throwing some numbers out there that is, again, based on best case scenario. So rates did do it.
I just said Google it.
Yeah, just Google it if you want to know the real answers. But yeah, rates did drop significantly. So we're going to talk about the impact of that. What does that do? So Carlos, you're very much buyer heavy, but you're kind of doing a little bit of both now. I mean,
I'm about half and half this year. I'm starting to switch over to the listing side, but yeah, rates have a huge impact, not just with buyers, but with sellers. I feel like sometimes even more with sellers, because at the end of the day, there's market value, and that's the same as appraisal, right?
Right. Well,
not really.
No, sorry. I didn't listen.
I was trying to catch you off guard. But market value is essentially what buyers are willing to pay for a property. It's not what the city decides to appraise it at. So when rates get to a certain point, buyers can't afford as much as they normally can, meaning most people's home values not necessarily going to drop a lot, but they're not going to continue going up in value. Now, I've seen a lot of newer homes, new constructions, especially where they're still building new homes. Some of those, if you bought them a year ago, are dropping pretty heavily. I've seen a lot of properties drop $50,000 because the builders are trying to get rid of their inventory. So they're dropping prices like crazy, which ultimately drops prices around that entire neighborhood. Now, rates overall don't necessarily stop people from buying. They just, in a sense, scare people. I always say there's always a market for somebody. Who would you say the market is for right now?
I think it's a mix, because I think you really nailed it. What is the types of values? And I always tell this when I go on an appointment. There's three types of values in this market. There's what I believe it's worth. There's what an appraiser is going to think it's worth, and there's what a buyer's willing to pay for it. And I think when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, we're in the market now where it's what is a buyer willing to pay for it. And I don't think that necessarily impacts what the house is worth. I really don't. I mean, I think we all get a pretty good idea that you can get a deal. So what is the definition of getting a deal? Well, to me, the definition of getting a deal is getting it under what the market value is. If you have a house and I put numbers on it and an appraiser puts numbers on it or whatever, and the market value comes in what we believe about $500,000, How much can you get it for as a buyer? And that's where it comes in, is what is the buyer willing to pay for it? If it has all the things that a buyer wants and everything is perfect and everything stars aligned, you're still very much getting market value. But we're seeing now that buyers are becoming more picky, and that maybe those houses don't have exactly what a buyer's looking for. So they're going to get a little bit better deal in their mind. And it's playing out that way very much with the market, is they're going to be able to get the house for a little less than what they, what the seller has it listed for. And I think that's setting the expectation. As far as the seller impact goes, sellers can't go into it with a mindset of, well, you think the market value is 500,000. So let's list it at 520 because I know I got to come down and I want to give some negotiating room. That's not how this works, because buyers agents are catching on and they're doing their CMAs. They're running their numbers, making sure that it aligns with kind of what we're looking for in terms of what the client's willing to pay. And rates play such a big part of that, because, you've got the buy down options, whether it's a 2-1 temporary buy down or a permanent buy down or whatever.
What's a buy down exactly?
So basically it's the ability to get a lower rate temporarily. Well, temporarily or permanent.
Like an arm?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good way to describe it. I actually was talking to somebody about this the other day. So if you're old school, you're familiar with what an ARM is. It's an adjustable rate mortgage. It typically has a shorter note with a balloon at the end of that note. For example, it could be a 10-year ARM at, let's say, 4%. But at the end of that 10 years, it's going to balloon and your whole payment is due. The entire balance is due. And at that point, you refinance into a full term note or whatever it is. 2-1's a little bit different. A 2-1 buy down, basically you get points. So the seller can contribute up to a certain amount to get you this 2-point buy down. So if, for example, if interest rates on a perfect scenario are 6.4, could you get a 4.4? Sure, for the first year. And then at the end of that year, when you get close to the second year, you would then go into it thinking, okay, I'm getting close to my second year. What are rates? Let's say rates are hovering around 5.6, 5.7. Well, your second year, you're going to go up 1 point. So from 4.4 to 5.4. So you look at it, okay, I can go to 5.4 and wait to see if they fall some more, or I can go ahead and refinance and lock it in at 5.6, which is what the current rate is, and say, okay, now I know I'm good at 5.6 for 30 years. Or like I said, you can ride it out, and then the next year, your rate would go back up to that market rate from when you went under contract. I think it's funny because a lot of lenders are starting to kind of talk about this. It's not that great of an idea.
Yeah.
And I would tend to agree in some instances, because right now a permanent buy down, which means a 30-year fixed, you can, and this is only from seller concessions, the buyer cannot contribute to this for either buy down. You can get into the 5.5, 5 3/4. So it's kind of like, do you just do the permanent and use the remaining funds that the seller is willing to concede to help towards your closing costs and things like that? And this is something you want to talk to a lender about, but that's essentially what they're looking at. And sellers are seeing that. They're seeing that reoccurrence in the market over and over again, and agents are showing them and talking to them about it. And when you look at it in a macro, sellers are trying to compensate for that by listing the house too high to cover that in negotiation. Problem is, if you're too high, people are going to come look at your house. Because buyers agents are running CMAs. They're looking at the market. They're saying, hey, look, they're listed at 525, but the market says it's 500. We need to get this house around 495 or so, plus $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in closing costs. So that doesn't mean your house isn't worth $500,000 or 505 or whatever. It just means, hey, look, let's be realistic about what this market is. Mm-hmm. If you want to sell your house, this is what you can expect. And I think agents can start to see that.
So what would you say? So I've had a couple people that wanted to sell their house. I actually have a couple listings where they're sitting on the market, let's say 60, 70, 80 days, and they don't want to lower their price. They're just like, what else can we do? What are you doing? I'm like, look, we're doing everything we can, but if the house is not priced right, you're not going to sell. What do you typically recommend to those sellers?
Right now, it's, to be frank, it's price and condition.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, there's so much of that depends on condition too. Like, are we talking about a really nice, clean, relatively flawless house? There's no such thing as a flawless house, but my meaning to that is like, there's no visual like, oh my God, this house is just not updated or whatever.
Yeah.
it's more often than not, it's just price, and people just aren't willing to spend that on a house like that. And I think you have to look at it from the perspective of people are going to be actively comparing, especially in San Antonio, your house to new builds.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Actively. And what can they get out of a new build that they can't get out of your house? Higher concessions, typically, because builders' margins are better than a seller's margins any day of the week. You can get better rates because a lot of these builders have in-house financing and they're giving out better rates. So you've got to make sure your house can compete with that. And that's why it's so important that when you're looking to sell a client a new home, you make sure they understand competing as builders is a thing, especially the closer you are to new construction.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. And I mean, there's new construction almost everywhere in San Antonio. So you can't price 5,000 below and expect to sell your home quickly. And it's been a common occurrence. But I think slowly sellers are starting to come to the understanding that either we're going to wait a while or we just got to price right. Cause I've seen houses still go multiple offers in a weekend.
Oh yeah.
And I'll be completely frank. Most agents putting out the stigma that it's a horrible market. Everything's not selling. Buyers are not wanting to buy. This has been my best year in my career. It's been a weird year, but I think it's more about taking over market share like our team does. Cause those agents that are scared are dropping out. And how are you? Are you doing pretty well compared to your best year?
Yeah. I mean, this is probably going to be my best year, but it's probably going to be the hardest I've worked for that.
I will say the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say the market's great. It's not and again, we'll avoid the political discussion or we'll save it for later, but I really have seen, and I don't know if it's a coincidence or what, but kind of since the attempt on Trump, it has slowed down dramatically because I think it highlighted the intensity of this election and people are like, okay, hold on. What's going to happen? What's going on? I don't know if those two things correlate. I feel like, and I've gone and looked at the stats, my showing traffic, I think I have 17 or 18 listings, has dropped tremendously since that. And I really expected when the rate fell last week for a lot of that to pick back up.
And
I didn't see it. I mean, even looking at contracts coming in from the team, I didn't see it.
Yeah. No.
And then the stock market collapsed, and I think it scared the hell out of everybody. What's really going on? You know, I was on a podcast with Mark Jones on the Key Factors podcast just last week, and we were talking about it. Well, actually, earlier this week, Monday, and we were talking about that very thing and how people saw the rate drop, but the Fed rate stayed the same. They locked it in on Monday. Last Monday. It wasn't changing. And so that's not what drove that rate. It was mortgage-backed securities that drive rate drops. And when I think what you're going to see, I think you're probably going to see that rate go back up a little bit because I think mortgage-backed securities got a little scared because now they got to buy these, all these people that were locked in are trying to unlock and relock on the new rates. And then you got to run on refinances, which is crazy. We'll talk about that later. But I do believe you might see rates go back up a little bit. But seeing the consumer confidence of enough consumer confidence for that rate to drop in the market, you got potentially a quarter to a half a point coming up from the Fed, hopefully. This month or next month. Could we see mid fives?
I mean, that would be amazing. Well, that's pretty much getting back to where we should be pre-COVID.
4.5, 5.5 is really what a good quality seller's market is.
I feel like that would be amazing if that were to happen. But buyers just got to get educated, and realtors, you got to properly educate your buyers. Like, I feel like a lot of realtors are feeling like the negative of the market. So they're projecting that onto their buyers. Yes, it's quote unquote a bad market, as they say, but you can still go out there and negotiate and get a great deal for somebody.
That's a really good point. And actually, I don't think we harp on that enough. I think the realtor side training is so bad. Not that obviously I think brokers carry that burden. for the most part, but I think there are so many agents that were so new into this business that they didn't have the training, and now they're seeing this business kind of turn into what it is, a legitimate business, and saying, "Oh, this is so much harder," and they don't have, but they don't know how to explain this to their clients. So you have the big wigs, the guys that produce at a high level, that have been producing at a high level, that can explain it properly. They're not working with these clients. Because there's so many buyers and sellers out there, but there's so many more agents that are so new that they're not educating them properly. And you're seeing a lot of buyers leave their agents looking for more seasoned agents. I get calls pretty regularly now for buyers that are leaving an agent or sellers that are leaving an agent because they don't know how to explain this market to them. Hell, I'll even argue that it's hard for me to explain this market because it's so very different than what we're used to. It's so very convoluted. There are a lot of agents out there, and you're dealing with a lot of buyers agents that don't know what they're talking about, and they don't know how to close a client. They don't know how to make the client understand the benefits of homeownership the right way because they were so used to, here's a house. Oh, you like that? Sign right here.
Yeah.
We're done.
Door openers.
It goes back to that whole thing we always talk about, living transactionally. So I think agency education is so brutally important now that if you're going to look, this is not a part-time industry anymore. I really don't believe it is. I think there are other people out there that could carry this part-time, but you're not going to be successful. And you're setting your clients up for failure if you try to go part-time, in my opinion.
Setting yourself up to get sued.
Well, that too. That's a whole nother conversation we're going to talk about later. But yeah, I think education in the marketplace is so important. And that's why you're seeing agents like us, the agents on this team, high producing agents still succeed at record levels, and agents fall out of this business like
I feel like people like me and you, like when we see like, okay, it's going to be a little bit harder. We're going to have to work harder. Like some agents just kind of fold and stop working. We work harder.
Yeah.
And that's why we're like, okay, we're having our best years. But like you said, this has definitely been probably the hardest I've worked in my career, in real estate. I pretty much haven't taken a day off this year, except for when I went to Vegas. But, and I'm actually going on another vacation. I didn't tell you that, but, at the end of August, for my wife's birthday, I'm going to Hawaii.
Oh,
yeah. First time there.
I'm in the wrong business.
Right. Had a good year.
Well, and I think it does. It really does go to show. Like every agent that I know that's high volume, they're doing fine. Yeah. Now, it's setting the proper expectations, but it's also not wasting your time on a bad deal. And I think that's really important, is that so many agents they get along with, I lost a listing a couple weeks ago to an agent that agreed to price this home $40,000 over what I felt like the market value was. And I went back and I thought to myself, what did I do wrong? Because I thought I had it in the bag. I went back, I looked at my numbers, I looked at them again, and I sent them over to a friend of mine that's an appraiser, and I had him look at them, and he was like, you're spot on. Well, I knew the seller wanted more money. I knew that. And that's exactly what the agent did. They took the listing with the expectation that, okay, we're going to go higher, but I got a listing now. And at some point they got to drop the price. Well, that's not always true.
Yeah.
So you spend, think about all the time she's going to have to spend talking to those people, talking about price drops, talking about repairs that may need to be made, all that she's missing calls for potential new business. And it all just boils down to, don't waste your time on a bad deal. Make sure you're properly educating. And more importantly than that, and I know people are going to disagree with this, in this type of market with the amount of volume that we can still do, learn when to say no.
Yeah. You
got to learn when to say no. Like, hey, look, I turned one down a month ago. I'm not going to waste my time knowing that it's not going to sell. What's the point? What good does it do me? And what good does it do my client, potential client, when I, hey, look, I'm not for this, but you're for this. Okay, we'll do what you say. They're going to get mad at me when it doesn't sell. So why waste my time chasing a lead that's not going to do me any good?
Now, I got just a question for you. Again, you've been doing listings longer than me. So what do you tell a client who can't drop the price because they bought solar panels or there's just no value anymore or something like that, and they have to sell, like, especially with military clients? I have somebody that's kind of in this situation right now. They bought the house for like, I don't know, 185 or something like that. It's probably worth 190 now. They bought $25,000 solar panels.
Was it a new build?
No.
Okay.
It was an older home, but they're already gone. They've already PCS. They're out of here. No, he actually got out of the military and went back home. And he's like, I don't have a job. Like, it's going on 60 days. He's like, I ran out of my savings. I get to a point where I can't pay my mortgage. What do I do?
Rent it.
That's exactly what I told him.
That's the only option.
I was like, you got to rent it.
It's just not going to
Time to
sell. If you run the numbers and it's 190 and you've been on the market now, so you know it's not going to sell.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, even what's your showing traffic?
We've had like 2 showings in like 90 days.
Too high.
Yeah.
You're too high. It's not going to sell. You need to get him set up with the property manager, get that property rented out ASAP.
That's exactly
because
what we're
he
doing.
doesn't have the luxury of collecting BAH and BAS anymore, which is a military subsidiary for active duty. Yeah, he needs to rent it out now. And nothing stops you from selling it when you rent it out.
Yeah.
You can still keep it on the market.
Sell as a rental.
Sell it as a rental, or you put it in the agreement, hey, I'm still trying to actively sell this property, make sure it's available for showings, but you kind of reduce your renting pool when you do that because they don't want to be sitting in there trying to show it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, absolutely. You got to, I mean, run him a rental CMA and say, hey, look, I'm just going to give you my professional. And people got to understand, I don't know why clients get frustrated when realtors do that. Because to me, I think you're looking out for their best interest because
100%.
nobody wants to sell the house more than you other than the owner because that's how you get paid.
Yeah.
You're not getting paid if you rent it out. Like, but you're looking out for your client's best interest in the hopes that, hey, in a year or two, things are better. It's got some appreciation, but just stop putting solar panels on your house. If you know you're not staying there long term, stop putting solar panels on your house.
100%.
We keep talking about that.
Solar panels are absolutely horrible unless you're staying there for the rest of your life,
you pay cash.
or you pay cash. Yeah. Because I think his solar panel bill is $110. His electricity bill is like $40 a month. So it's not bad.
But he's still paying $150 in utilities.
Yeah.
So what did he save?
No. Yeah.
I mean, it's a $185,000 house. So I'm going to guess somewhere around 1,500 square foot.
Yeah, a little bit less. Yeah.
Less than that. So what could his utility bill be? 130, 150? It's only 1,500 square foot.
My house is 1985. I need to replace my windows. He probably does too. My house is about 1,500 square feet. My bill this last month was $390.
What are you doing in that house?
It's just the heat.
You need to get a programmable thermostat and program it. So like at certain times
you'd be surprised.
Dude, my electric bill.
Well, I do have a mini split in I converted my garage into my man cave / office. I do have a mini split in there to keep it cool and
draw a lot of electricity on a room that's probably not insulated. The exterior walls aren't insulated.
Yeah, I know. But
so that's your problem, right?
But they didn't raise it up too much. Like it's been like $390 constantly before I even converted my garage.
Yeah, you got something going on.
I need to replace my windows.
It may be your air conditioner.
Yeah, no, definitely air conditioner. My air conditioner is like 25 years old.
He just needs to rent that place out.
Yeah, no, he is. We literally had that conversation this morning. I was like, look. Like I talked to even investors. The investors say they can't even do it. It does need a little bit of work, but ultimately he's gonna rent it out.
But then when he rents it out, he's gonna have to put some money into it, likely to get it to rental standards or manage it himself.
It's honestly not that bad. It just needs to probably replace the carpet. And he's good.
I mean, he could probably rent it himself. Get the carpet shampooed. I got one right now in Rotama Ridge. That same thing. He wants to sell, but the market's not quite there, and I'm trying to talk him into renting it out and. Look, I mean, it is tough.
What's going to happen is next year, all these people that have been trying to sell right now, when everything changes, when the market changes and we correct, they're all going to sell and prices will go up.
There's no doubt 100%. About it. And I think people need to understand that. Like, look, I get it. If you're waiting for rates to drop, I understand that's fine, but don't expect you to see the same prices.
Yeah.
That's just not going to it's not how it works. Like you increase the demand, your supply still isn't there. Prices are going to go up. Are we going to see COVID style prices? No, I don't think you're going to, but I think it'll shock the market a little bit.
Yeah.
I think for a little while, you'll see that run. I think it'll settle down much quicker. But if you're going into this thinking, well, I'm going to wait till rates drop to the 5.5, 5.4, 5.3. You're going to pay $15,000, $20,000 more for that house.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to get the option for closing cost concessions. You're not going to get the option for home warranties. You're not going to get the option for buy downs. It's going to go away. I promise you. You just watch and see.
Yeah. The majority of buyers I've been working with the last couple of months have almost all got their closing costs almost all paid for.
So that's a perfect segue into the next topic. It was just closing cost averages. What are you seeing on the buyer side right now? on average for closing costs?
I would say 7 to 10,000.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's
average. Yeah.
I think a lot of it depends on price point, but I'm seeing anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000.
Wow. Yeah.
But it's that buy down, it's a point per, I think it's based on points. So like for every $500,000, it's 1%. So a $500,000 house, 2-1 buy down, you're looking at about $10,000.
Yeah.
Then they're asking for, okay, now I got the buy down, but I also need to cover some of my closing costs. So I have less cash to take to the table. Because the economy is tougher, cash is king. People are trying to stay liquid. When you go into it with a buyer, what are you looking to gain from closing cost coverage?
Well, ultimately, getting the rate down, in my opinion, is the best route to go.
More on the permanent side or the 2-1? Like, no, not like what you think, but what you're seeing when you're writing offers. Are they targeting the permanent or are they targeting the 2-1s?
I haven't did any 2-1s.
Okay, so mostly permanent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't really like the 2-1s. I feel like they're just a ploy for mortgage lenders to refinance in a couple years and get more business. Honestly, that's just my thoughts. But I think it works in the short term. But just imagine all these lenders said, hey, I did 2-1 buy down. They're going to stay in touch with those people and like, hey, rates are actually low now. You can get a permanent 4% or 5%. They're going to get that refinance. So, and in my mind, that's just kind of where that's at. So I've never really pushed the 2-1 or 3-1, but permanent, yes, because at the end of the day, if you get $10,000 off the price, what's going to save you like $50 on your mortgage, $70?
It depends on the price point of the house. I typically try to look at the higher the price point, the more advantageous it is to target a specific type of buy down.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of the 2-1 unless your expectations are much higher in what you want in a home.
Yeah.
And if you're spending more money, then maybe it makes sense because then your payment is reflected,
but I'm just
so
thinking,
much more.
I'm thinking of the average San Antonio buyer, 325.
Yeah, 2-1 buy down is
yeah.
not a good play.
Yeah, not at all.
No.
You get the 500 to 800, then different story. But anything above that, obviously,
especially if the seller's willing to give that much, like.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Like, but you have to look at it from another perspective too. That thing we talked about on this podcast before as well. What would you rather have? Would you rather, hey, seller, I'm going to do this permanent buy down, which is typically a little cheaper depending on how much you want to buy it down. And I want you to cover my closing costs. And I'm going to bring less money to the table. And I've got a $17,000 note on a car that's costing me $400 a month. I'm just going to pay my car off. Well, you're getting rid of a $400 note or you're saving $50 a month on your mortgage. Get rid of the depreciating asset.
Yeah, 100%.
Pay a little bit more for the house, but pay off that loan, like pay off that car, pay off that credit card. Like that's tangible. Like that's like you can see that every month and it's a depreciating asset. So you're not losing money on top of the money you're giving to it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something I would go for is paying off everything that you don't need. I never spent too much money on my vehicles, personally. I did now. I said I never, every vehicle before I bought my Tesla. Yes,
this guy drives a Ferrari and a Tesla. Do you have a new Tesla?
It's a 2023.
Are there paper plates still on it?
Oh, I just got my VA plates waiting for them to come in the mail.
Okay.
But no, I switched it out. No, I'm just kidding. But, ultimately I've always bought my vehicles cash because I'm like, if you can't afford it cash, you shouldn't be buying it, I guess. That's just how I thought about vehicles. But when the Tesla came out, I mean, I just wanted an electric vehicle. I love technology. I can't help it. But ultimately, I feel like, paying off those assets that you don't need, get rid of those. But is VA loan, I don't even know if you know this, where you can ask the sellers to pay off your debt. Did you know that you could do that?
Isn't that called I
don't remember what it's called.
ARP or ERP or something?
I have no idea exactly what it's called, but
I've heard something about that.
Well, I know it's up to a certain amount, but instead of them paying like just your closing costs, you can actually ask them to pay off your car. Let's say you owe $5,000, $7,000 on it. You can ask the money to go toward that. Now it opens up your debt to income and allows you to buy more. I honestly just recently learned about that, but I think it's only VA loans. I don't think any other loans do it.
I wonder if it's every lender that does that or for specific lenders that do that.
Very well. Could be true.
I know, like, I was having a conversation with a lady the other day and she came into some money and she was like, man, I think I'm going to pay off my house. And I was like, why? And she was like, well, and she's a really good, I think like a 3.1% interest rate. I was like, why would you pay off your house? Well, I want to be debt free. Look, if you follow the Dave Ramsey model, I get it. Okay, fine. But listen to like, so here's my logic behind that, and talking to some bankers and stuff like that and some stuff that I'm trying to do. You could pay off that house and yes, you could be debt free, or you could take that money, put it in a money market where it's gaining interest every year, and then do a direct debit to that account. So you get rid of that cash. It's still yours, but you're putting it in an account that's generating revenue. You're making the payment straight from that. So you don't even see it. It's almost as if you paid it off. You've just committed that money to it. It's paying it off. But every year you make a little bit of money on it, on a payment that's already going out, on an item that you already got the money in the bank for. And on top of that, yes, I know you have interest and it accrues year over year, or day over day, but now you have some liquidity. So if something pops up, emergency, it's like an emergency savings account, and it's paying for the house, and you could even double your payment and pay the principal, over and over, but you've already put the money aside, but you still have access to it. I've heard that there's like a trust you can do. You put it in a trust and it pays it from the trust, but it gains interest. And I'm just like, I would rather pay on an appreciating asset and pay off everything else. All we really have left is the 2 vehicles and a camper. So I'll pay those off before I ever touch my house. Now, I have a 2.25% interest rate. So that helps. But yeah, I don't transcribe or subscribe to the whole idea of being completely debt free. Because one, I want my credit to be constantly growing, constantly being, establishing itself. But two, that's a lot of money to commit to something when I stumble across a piece of property to build a new gym on, or maybe I stumble across an investment property that I'm going to get it really cheap and I can rent it out for a ton of money. Like, I would like to have that liquidity. So think about that when you're talking to a financial advisor, when you're talking to your bank, and if you come into some money or you want to do something like that, maybe you don't pay off that appreciating asset.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I've thought the same way. I don't ever have any plans to pay off my house. At least, pay it off early. I do plan on renting out my current house and eventually buying a new house, just because I bought mine now just because I wanted to put work into it, flip it. It took me a while to do that. I still need to change the windows. That's pretty much the last thing I did to it. But I bought it for $150 back in 2016. Put about $48,000 into it. And I need to put, windows or what, like 15,000 maybe for,
eight to 10 maybe.
Yeah. So let's say that I put 60,000 into it. Even without doing that right now, it's over 310,000 is roughly what it's worth. So I'm going to pretty much double my investment. So, one, I don't want to sell it. It's kind of like, to me, like my first car is my first house.
Right.
So, I want to keep it, but I'm going to keep it as a rental and, keep it long term. I have a 4% interest rate. That's just kind of what the average was back then, back in 2016. So essentially I feel like that's good. I'll probably refinance it if it ever gets.
You mean
below
you didn't
that.
refinance it when rates were 2.5%?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Weren't you a realtor when that happened?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. That was when I first got into real estate.
It was like 3 years ago.
2016?
No.
It's almost 10 years ago.
I'm talking about when rates were 2 to 2.5.
Oh.
2020, 2021.
Ah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna educate you, Carlos.
Yeah.
We're gonna help you out.
Trying to avoid, because I should have refinanced, but I didn't. Honestly, I did not see it going back up this high. I thought it would go back to 4 or 5.
I don't think anybody expected to see this.
I thought it would be 4 and 5s and go back to where I'm at. So I'm like, why refinance? It's going to be where I'm at already. So I just left it as is. But then when I went to 8s, I was like, oh my God, never refinancing.
But the idea that you go into the refinancing, the idea that there are actually people right now talking about refinancing.
Refinancing right now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I've got several lenders I've talked to. They're just getting blown up with refinances. And I'm like, why are you doing that?
Some people got 8%. So,
who?
There's
the people that got 8% probably ain't refinancing for much more right now.
Yeah. You're probably right. They're going to get like 7.5.
But we know a Fed rate drop is coming. At least wait until you get under 6. Like, I just feel like there's just no,
that's where I would be. Yeah.
People are impatient. They want instant gratification, which I get. But look, my professional opinion, you need to pump the brakes on the refinance, because I think rates are going to continue to drop. We got an election coming up. There's no way in hell they're letting that thing ride out like that. Like, rates are going to come down some more.
Yeah, Trump's going to bring them down for sure when he gets elected.
It's not looking great for him right now. Recent polling, we're going to talk about that, but we won't get into that.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
So, NAR rules go into effect this month. What do you think?
So, I honestly think it's a good thing, in my opinion. It's going to weed out a lot of people who are time wasters, tire kickers. If someone's not
You
serious,
talking about agents or buyers?
both, to be honest. But a lot of people who don't want, like, I put a lot of videos and stuff like that online, and I get people like, "Oh, I'm not selling anything before to see a house." I'm like, "Well, you're not seeing a house. You're not going to buy a house." But there are going to be agents out there who don't care. They're still going to show the house. Like, I definitely know that there's agents out there who they're going to show the house. But at the end of the day, Texas, you're always supposed to have a buyer rep. It wasn't mandatory, but most people thought you should buy one. I feel like it's not really going to change much. Like, it's not going to change a whole lot. I feel like a lot of people are going to push to getting the document signed, especially like on teams and people who are wanting to follow the rules correctly, at least in the beginning. And then it's going to go back to exactly how it is now. The only difference is listing agents. We're going to get a lot more calls because people are going to be calling to ask what the commission is. Are you ready for that?
I don't know if that's the case.
You don't think so?
I don't know the listing agents are going to have that many more calls. And one of my primary reasons why I don't think that's the case, I think it's going to push buyers away and to buyers agents that aren't going to force them to sign something from day one. I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. I'm not saying how I'm going to do it. I'm just saying what I think is going to happen. Because it's hard enough to get a buyer to commit to some sort of a representation, single form.
Yeah.
Like the touring agreements. It's hard enough to get them to sign that. Like buyers, typically, sometimes they're not necessarily tire kickers. But like, you know what? That's a sweet ass house. If I can buy that house, I'll buy it. But if not, I'm not interested, but I want to go look at it.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You going to hit them with that before you even go show it to them?
Yeah. They don't even know you. They just called you from a sign or online.
I do think it'll go back to pretty much normal. I think this is going to evolve over time. It's going to change to certain things, but I don't think this is going to be something that I think it's going to be really hard to condition buyers or force buyers to sign an agreement before they really know what they're doing. Because what's the buyer going to do? Let's just throw an example out there. And I love you, Joe. Please don't be mad at me. Buyer calls you. Hey, Mr. Chris, I want to go see this house. All right, cool. First scenario. Before we go see this house, I want to explain to you how the commission process works. Break it down for them. Oh, well, I don't really have that kind of cash because, I got to pay all my closing costs, but what I may not get. So that conversation's over. They're going to go find another agent that will. Scenario 2. Mr. Chris, I want to go see this house. Yes, sir. Let me explain to you how the buyer process works. Okay, cool. It's 3%. Will you sign this buyer's agreement saying that you'll pay me 3% if the seller doesn't pay me? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Cool. Now we get him to sign it. We go show a house. That's your initial consult. Because you're going to have a consult over the phone, roughly cover the buyer's rep. But you don't know what their closing costs are going to look like yet because you haven't found a house. So you don't know how much their closing costs are going to be because you don't know what the seller's going to give. You don't know about, clear cooperation, commission agreements. We don't know about that yet. So let's say we get to the point where, okay, hey, Mr. Buyer, this is the house you want. You're pre-approved, but the lender says we know you need at least $12,000 in closing costs to help you get to the rate you want and all this. Oh, by the way, don't forget, they're not paying commission, so you're going to pay that 3%. Now that buyer's got 3%, $12,000 plus, let's say he's FHA, 3.5% down. Oh, by the way, there's a funding fee. Oh, by the way, there's an origination fee.
From $12,000 to now you got to pay $30,000.
That's what I'm saying. So, and then what's going to happen if that buyer says, no, I'm not doing it? I still want that house, but no, I'm not paying you all that. You have a fiduciary responsibility now because you have a buyer's rep. And yeah, sure, there's an agreement in place for them to pay 3%. Are you really going to sue that person?
Probably not.
I mean, how many agents have the ability to sue that person?
Yeah.
Now, I hope that the broker level steps in, but Jesus, why do you want to hurt the buyer already more? Like it just waters it down. And I think the sellers that I've talked to, I've only had one person bring it up about possibly not doing it. Then I walked them through what FSBOs are doing and how that works. And most of them are like, no, I want my house sold. We're going to go ahead and just pay it. So then my next question becomes, well, if I have a 3% agreement with the buyer and then I have a 3% agreement and then the seller's willing to pay the 3%, I guess I just amend that buyer's agreement to do away with the 3%. If you can even get them to sign it to begin with.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it just creates, but what I think it will do is it'll get the bad agents out of the business.
Yeah, 100%. Like, all the agents that don't want to have hard conversations, one that really are not knowledgeable enough to have the confidence to have that conversation. And there's going to be a mass exodus.
It's
Exodus.
You go on these real estate platforms. First of all, they're disgusting. They're just real estate masterminds. All of those. Oh my God. But I'm just going to go to listings only. Okay. First of all, getting a listing is a lot harder than getting a buyer because there's a hell of a lot more buyers out there than there are listings. And if you think you're just going to flip the script, first of all, who didn't think of that when they first got into business?
Right.
I just want to do listings. Your goal, man, to me was always start out with buyers, build my pipeline, and then flip the script, go to listings.
100%. That's mine too.
So if you think just because this is happening, now you're going to change those sellers, guess what? Good luck.
Yeah.
Because there's some really good listing agents out there. And the listing agents that are really, really good are your most experienced agents. And now you're going to compete with them?
It's a completely different skill set too. Like
totally different.
Completely different skill set. Like even if you've been a realtor for 5-10 years and you've only done buyers, you come in and try to do listings. It is a completely different ball game.
If you are not good at getting listings now and you think you're just going to change, you'll be out of the business. And that's fine. I got no problem with that. I mean, I want every agent to succeed. I really, really, truly do. But I don't. Because there's some really bad agents out there that don't deserve to succeed. I can tell you, I can name 4 of them right now that I've got feedback requests out to that I have been chasing for literally 7 days and I can't get them to respond. And it's like, dude, I'm not asking you to write a contract. I'm just asking you to tell me why you didn't write a contract. That's it. If you're not responding to that, you're a bad agent, in my opinion.
Like, especially if the agent reaches out to you for feedback. Like, so again, I've done a lot of buyers in my time, especially during COVID, and I'm showing like, I don't know, 3 buyers, 20 houses in a day. It's hard to go back and do feedback on all those houses.
I get that totally. Yeah.
But if the agent's specifically reaching out, yeah, by all means, I'm going to reach out respond every time.
It's so stupid to think that, okay, I get it. You don't have time to necessarily go through your email, and not agents are like us where I have my email is, if it's not empty, that means those are to-dos I have to do.
You haven't seen my...
But again, it goes to, if you have a ton of emails, it's hard to go back through and say, okay, oh yeah, I got to do that. But the listing agent's job is to chase feedback. If you're not getting that back through showing time, your job is to call or text or whatever.
Yeah.
I call and text at least once a day until I get the feedback. And I'll give up after about a week. But like, I'm so irritated with these 6 or 7 or 4 or 5 agents. I'm not stopping. I'm going to keep going.
You know what I've really noticed a lot lately as well, being more on the listing side, is a lot of the ones that don't get feedback are just showing agents. Like people are just hiring people just to go open the door and that's it. I'm like, at least they can give the feedback to the agent to give feedback. Like if you're that busy where you can't go show a home.
Well, if you're a showing agent, you ain't that busy.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying if the actual agent that hired the showing agent, they should still be giving some type of feedback. Like,
agreed.
Oh, they weren't interested. Oh, it's not the area, whatever that may be, so that it can help the sellers get their house.
Do you have your showing agent schedule the showing, or do you schedule it?
I don't ever use a showing agent. You do?
I do all the time.
Yeah, I haven't got to that level yet.
I make them schedule the showing, but they give me feedback, and I try to get it back. I do get it back to the agent almost every time. But that you actually brought up a really good point that I'm curious about, and this would be a good question for Joe, and maybe we can follow up with him and bring an answer back to the podcast. How does the new showing rules, NAR rules, impact showing agents?
That is true.
How are they allowed to show without a buyer's rep?
That is very true. Maybe I bet they're gonna change the form, or it's like, all right, put 3 names on here. They can like as an agent.
Because I'm not letting my client sign a buyer's rep with that agent.
Yeah, that's a really good.
And if
question.
I have the buyer's rep, that's the same as them not having a buyer's rep to show. I'm going to follow up with Joe on that. That's something that we're going to talk to Joe about, because I leverage showing agents quite a bit. And obviously with seasoned clients that, they understand the circumstance if I can't get to it. But that's going to be a huge, huge sticking point. Are we ending showing agency? Not a chance,
it's not
right?
Gonna happen. Not at all. Like I said, I think it's just, they're just putting this out there because they got to cover their own ass in a sense. So they're saying,
well, let's be fair. Okay, let's back this up. It is our fault
Oh, 100%.
that this lawsuit happened.
100%.
And what they're trying to put in place is the National Association of Realtors trying to CYA them and us. They are trying to protect us from ourselves. I understand that. But I also understand that every state is different in how they legislate and how they work their buyers agency, listing agency, all of that. Texas is so, and we can only speak for Texas, is so insulated. Their rep agreements are so strong that I think you're protected regardless. I've never, ever had a buyer's rep signed prior to writing an offer.
Me either.
So how do I change? What do I do? I don't know yet. I've got a lot of research I still need to do because, again, a lot of the rules that are coming out now that a lot of people talk about are evolving. They have changed so much over the last, I would say, 3 or 4 months. So we really didn't know what to expect. And now that everything's starting to kind of come out, what we're going to do, now it's time to knuckle down and learn what we can and can't get away with. I say get away with. I don't mean it to sound bad, but like what we're allowed to do, and the accountability side of it. How does it get enforced? What's my responsibility? What's my liability? But then on the other side of it, if you're going to enforce it on me, how do I get to hold the broker level accountable if they don't back me up and pursue those buyers that fail to do it, or pursue the seller that doesn't do it? There's got to be some give and take here. And I think that's where this is going to, I think it's going to eventually evolve right back to where it was.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I feel like it's all created by honestly listing agents, obviously, because weren't educating the sellers up front. That's why the whole lawsuit happened. Not necessarily in Texas, but it was in Missouri, I think.
Missouri, yeah.
Yeah. But ultimately, I actually experienced an example of this just on Friday. So I got a call from a potential listing, came in through Zillow, and I spoke with her, set up an appointment for this coming Monday, and she was like, well, how much do you charge? And I was like, well, it's negotiable. We'll talk about that once we meet in person. She's like, oh, okay. I did have another agent come out here, and I was like, oh, are you familiar with the lawsuit and all that stuff? And she's like, yeah, but the other agent said that it doesn't change anything, that it's still 6%, that it's going to stay like that. And I was like, well, that's why we got sued in the first place. I was like, there's no requirement for it to be 6%. It's all negotiable. And I mean, we're going to meet on Monday, and that essentially, I felt that agents are still out there doing the same thing they got us sued in the first place.
I would say there's two sides to every story. I would like to know the context with which the agent presented that information.
Yeah.
Because she could be summarizing what the agent
Very well, yeah.
And look, I'll tell you, like, if I go to a listing appointment and the client says, hey, look, I want to use you, but I'm not paying for the buyer's agent, I'm probably not going to take the listing.
Yeah, I've gotten a couple of those. I mean, I've gotten a couple of those already, but I educated them why you should pay a buyer's agent. And they're like, oh, okay, I understand. And then they move forward.
And that's where I go back and forth with this buyer's representation prior to showing, because if a listing agent doesn't have to get a listing representation signed before they go meet with them on a listing,
right?
There's so much to this, but I would tell that client, look, everything's negotiable 100%, but I control what I'm willing to make. And I know that if I only charge 3% and there's no compensation to the buyer's agent, the house isn't going to sell.
Yeah, 100%.
And look, we get into the whole steering thing. And I don't know how this is going to impact steering, because steering is illegal. But could we see a situation where buyers like, all right, cool, just show me the houses that are going to pay you so I don't have to pay you? That's not steering, in my opinion. That's the buyer making a specific request for a type of house.
Yeah.
So then those are the ones that are just going to sit. And so does MLS go in and make a subline or subcategory for that? I don't know. It's going to evolve. But I very much think we're going to get back to the same thing that we were before. And I think sellers are smarter than that, as long as the agent explains it right.
Yeah.
Because I haven't had it pushed back yet. I had one ask me about it, broke down the chances of selling. And we don't have any stats for how this is going to work.
Yeah.
But we can look at FSBOs and say, okay, the seller was selling for sale by owner, but they had it posted on MLS, they had it posted on Zillow, whatever, through whether it be a listing service or whatever, and they were only paying 1% to the buyer's agent, and it sat, or none to the buyer's agent, and it sat. Again, you can say, well, those agents shouldn't be steering them away. Well, you don't know that they are. because they're trying to get paid what they think they're worth. And if they go to their client and say, yeah, just want to let you know, if we buy this, you're going to owe me an additional $6,000.
I mean, they can't afford it. So it's not necessarily steering.
So
They
it's not
can't
steering.
afford it. It's like if they wanted to go see $1 million house and they only approved for 500, that's not steering. They can afford it.
That's
So
yeah, I think that's what I think you're just opening up for even more lawsuits.
yeah,
And that's where I say the broker level, are they going to come to the defense? And if you're going to hold us accountable for it, how do we hold you accountable to pursue these people?
yeah,
Now you're opening up the agent for lawsuit from the consumer and the brokerage law, open them up lawsuits from the agent side. And I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm just running through scenarios in my head on how this could play out and the impact it has on the market. It's already going to slow down, I think, a slow market, except for those that decide, hey, look, this is worth paying for
yeah.
because I know my house is going to sell. I know we're priced right. I know I'm paying you your value and you're compensating the other agent their value. I understand that. And that's going to really kind of boil down to what it, ends up resulting in.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like I said, I think the agents that are already successful, they're going to keep being successful, probably get more successful.
We're going to shift to sellers.
Like, yeah, pretty much. Like drop everything, go straight to sellers. But no, I mean, there's a market for buyers, there's a market for sellers. I think you don't pursue a lot of buyers, but you still do a lot of buyers. I'm literally like half and half, almost to a T. And I think it's more of, I think the balanced real estate agent is probably going to continue to be successful. Because if you literally just try to alienate certain type of clients, you're not going to be successful. But at the end of the day, I come from an aspect where I truly just want to help people. Like I literally don't care about the money. Yes, I want to make money, but I don't, at the end of the day, I want the relationship with that person to continue making money. It's not just one and done.
Agreed.
So I feel like a lot of agents who just care about the money and don't really want to educate their clients and don't want to build a relationship, they're just going to be out of business and they're not going to work with sellers.
I would agree 100%. I don't know if you know this, but there's an election coming up.
For what?
President and half of the Senate.
Half of the what?
Senate.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, did you know that?
I don't try to keep up with politics. I thought that happened every 10 years? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, we don't have term limits.
But yeah, so it's been a weird one. How do you feel that it's the Donald Trump assassination attempt really, I feel like, changed up everything. But it also really didn't, in a sense. So I feel like there's always been a ton of Trump supporters, Biden supporters, not really Biden supporters, but Trump haters. I feel like there really wasn't any Biden supporters. Again, my personal opinion. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who hate Trump. I can't believe some people said, oh, they should have not missed and all this stuff. That was absolutely horrible. But do you think that helped his chances of being president? Hurt it? Did anything to it?
So there's two sides to this. When he got shot at, I thought it was over, but that was when Biden was the candidate.
Yeah.
I really did think it was over. I thought for sure Trump had it in the bag. Now, I don't know. I really don't. And going into the last election, I pretty much said from the jump that Biden was going to win. This one's kind of confusing because you look at the popular vote, Trump's not going to win that. At least the polling, all the polling out there says he's not going to win that. The problem with polling is that polling doesn't focus on the electoral college. That's how elections are won or lost in the United States. And I know people don't like it, but you have to understand why it's in place. When you have states that are left-leaning, like New York, California, that make up such a large population, they shouldn't be able to dictate how a conservative state should be run, like Florida or Texas or, Oklahoma, whatever. So the college exists to make it, what does all the people on the left always say? Equitable.
Okay.
To make it equitable, to make it fair. So the electoral college is going to play a big role. And I think if Trump can get Pennsylvania and Georgia pretty much over. Is he going to get him? I don't know. I've looked at a lot of polling. I think right now,
I think he should have Georgia last time, but
he didn't have it. He barely lost Georgia by like 0.2%. Stop. Not going down that path. He lost. It is what it is. It was 3.5 years ago. We're not, no. But he keeps hurting himself. He's doing exactly what he did last election. He won't shut the hell up.
Yeah.
You need Georgia, but you go after their governor on social media. Shut up. Shut up. Like, those people love Brian Kemp. Why are you going after him? It's stupid. But I think the electoral college is going to play such a massive role in how this is going to go down. And I think it's so close in Pennsylvania. I think it's pretty close in Georgia. North Carolina is the one that's in play as well. I think Arizona is interesting too.
They're close.
But if you look at, you go to Nate Silver's website, or actually I like to look at Real Clear Politics, RCP. They project with the electoral college, Trump's going to win. Because again, polling, and you go and you poll 2,000 people, they're polling people from all over the country, and they're not dividing them up by state to dictate electoral college. So polling, Trump's down by, 1 or 2 points.
But right now?
Down right now. Most all the polls. I think that is going to play a big factor, is how do you get those swing states, the Pennsylvanias. I think bringing J.D. Vance on, I don't think it helped him. I don't think it necessarily hurt him, but it didn't help him.
He's got a big mouth too, yeah.
Well, he's just so young into the game. Nobody really knows him. They know him less than they knew
You're older
Rawls.
than him.
Huh?
I said, you're older than him.
I am. Wow.
I think he's 37 or 38,
30,
right?
About to turn 40.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of hurt Trump a little bit, because I think he could have brought someone like Glenn Youngkin to the table and really kind of captured a bigger crowd of the independents. But the electoral college, like I said, it plays a big role. You're going to have to get Pennsylvania. I think whoever gets Pennsylvania wins the election. I think, you look at Fetterman, Senator Fetterman's talking about, it looks like Pennsylvania is leaning towards the left. I struggle with that because Pennsylvania is such a big fracking state, and they're going to be pushing back against that. And they've been impacted almost worse than anybody in this economic state. Michigan, although people say Michigan's in play, Michigan's off the table. You're not going to get Michigan. I'll actually be there this weekend. They're not going to get Michigan. But you need Arizona helps, Georgia helps, but you need Pennsylvania. You get Pennsylvania, you just need 1 or 2 of those, and you have the 270 you need if you take what leans right, give it to Trump. Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, you win. Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, you win. So that's going to be a big factor moving forward. Wisconsin, I think, is still in play too. But I would tend to say Wisconsin probably leans a little left. But it's going to be interesting. I think what really irks me with this is the lack of media appearances by Vice President Harris. I think the minute, right, well, both of them, yeah, but he's so new into it. Like, I don't think I'm not worried about him. But her lack of media presence, I think the minute she starts getting it, if they allow her to, I think she could lose this thing for herself.
Well, I was going to say, like, I don't really know a whole lot about her. I know a little bit about her, but I think she's, in a sense, just as bad as Trump in a different way, but she is not presidential, in my opinion. She's not presidential. She just seems like, I don't know, just very like non-professional. I don't know how else to put it, but like everybody says it. They don't like Trump because he's not a politician and has a big mouth. She doesn't necessarily have a big mouth as talking crap, but I mean, as big as Trump.
Man,
but I'm just saying, just how she comes off is just, she's like, do you want her going up against Putin? Like, I couldn't see it.
See, and I want to touch on that. So keep that. I'm going to write that down. So talking about her, who she is, we don't know what her position is because she won't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
But as we've heard, we knew that she has flat out said she wants to come out and ban fracking. She's flat out said she wants to do a mandatory gun buyback. She's flat out said that she wants to make illegal immigration legal. She wants path to citizenship immediately, healthcare for all illegal immigrants. And now we're hearing that her campaign is saying, oh, no. She shifted her gears. She doesn't want any of that anymore. And I'm like, wait a minute. I would be extremely frustrated if this election hinges on independents that see that flip flop and say, because a lot of independents are, I would put them in line with centrists. Like they believe in the Second Amendment. Maybe there's some that don't like the whole AR-15 thing. I think a lot of them do. I think a lot of them want some sort of border control. I think a lot of them want some sort of immigration control. I think a lot of them don't really want healthcare for all because what it costs.
You need to ban all assault rifles.
Yeah. But if they fall in line with that and say, oh, well, she changed her mind and you believe it, you're an idiot. She's not changing her mind. This is what she wants. She's trying to win votes. And I think I'm hoping people see through that. That's why I want her to get in front of the media. And I don't think they'll let her, because I think they know her in the media is a losing proposition. I think it's going to come down to what she's willing to do and not willing to do. I know they don't want to debate yet. I know Trump has said he'll do it. I think September 4th. She says, no, it's got to be September 10th because that's what you agreed to, but he didn't agree to that. He agreed to debate Biden September 10th. He didn't agree to debate her. He wanted to wait until the DNC to do it. Well, it's official now. She's got the delegates. It's done. They don't need to go to the DNC for it. And I think even if they did, she was going to be the candidate. So it's interesting how this is playing out. Now, there is something I want to talk about. And I want to be very clear. This is not a sexist thing. I'm just curious how it's going to play out in the world. We are a very inclusive society. And I know there's a lot of people that don't think we're inclusive.
Yeah, they are.
They haven't lived in third world countries. They don't understand. And we can go down the Israel-Palestine thing. We can do all that. But they don't understand that the United States is probably more women freedoms oriented than most of the world. I would say United States, Europe, Canada is about it, because pretty much anywhere else you go, a woman cannot lead. They won't allow her to, especially in the Middle East.
I mean, the Middle East, women can't even show.
They don't even have rights, which I don't understand the whole Free Palestine movement, because y'all have no idea what they do to women over there. I do. I was in the Middle East for a very long time. But how is that going to appeal to Russia, Iran, China, communist nations, nations that don't have the same belief in women that we do? I'm curious how that would play out. And I think that's a big reason why I don't think we've seen a female president. No, let me back up. That's not true. I don't think we've seen a female president because a female hasn't come out and run that I think people would vote for. Hillary was a disaster. I'd love to see Condi run. But yeah, I'm interested how that would play out on the world stage, because I know what it's like to be in the Middle East, where our biggest threat is the Middle East.
Yeah.
And if all those countries band together and say, well, they got a woman president, we don't give a damn what they say, we ain't listening, that's going to be interesting to see that play out, especially like Russia, Ukraine, the Southeast Asia.
I mean,
Asia in general.
Hamas.
Hezbollah. I mean, again, I'm curious about that, because I think that's going to be, I think it could be very bad for us. And it's not that we don't want it. Like, I'd love to see a woman. I don't give a damn if you're a male, female. I don't care. As long as you take care of us and make sure that we're square. I mean, I don't care. But the world stage matters, because
I like to see Candace Owens as president.
Ew, God.
You don't like her?
He's a moron. That like anti-Israel bigot. She's an idiot. She's like Alex Jones 2.0. Like, anyways, stop. Took me off my train of thought. But like, how would that play out on the world stage? I mean, people don't like to take orders or be directed around by women.
Yeah.
And there's some people in our country that are like that too. But for the most part, our adversaries, would they look at it as a weakness, and could that open us up to a bigger threat at home?
Yeah. And I think most Americans would be perfectly fine with it. Like you said,
not her, but
I think it's just other countries. Yeah, not her. But just having a female president, I don't see an issue with that at all. But yeah, North Korea, like, it's just going to make us look like a weaker country than we already are.
And it's really unfortunate, but people have to look at things from a world view. Most of the people that are so anti-America live in America. They've never been to these other countries where they don't have those freedoms. So you live inside of a vacuum of American values, American rights, American freedoms. Oh, we don't have this freedom. Oh, women can vote, women can drive, women can run for office, women. Most of the smartest agents I know are women. My wife is smarter than I am. Most of your teachers are women. They can very much do it. But people outside of here, they don't think that way.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. But more interesting than that is this vice president selection. Have you been following this with this guy Walls?
Not really. I don't know anything about him. Like, where's he? I don't even know where he's from.
He's from Minnesota.
Okay.
So just kind of run down some of the things that I do know about him. And before we even get to the next part of the conversation with him, with a couple of veterans, he's been the governor. He's on his second term in Minnesota. They've seen carjackings increase by 298% since 2019. He was
Jesse, the body of Ventura left.
Maybe that timeline does line up.
Yeah, I think so.
I know that he was the governor during COVID, and he created a snitch line.
Snitch line?
Oh yeah. So if you saw your neighbors violating COVID restrictions, you could call this number and report them to the police. I don't know if anybody ever did it. I know that it was created.
Sure. Karen.
I know that he was so hard on COVID until the riots of 2020, the summer, when Minneapolis damn near burned to the ground over the George Floyd protests. And he cheered him on. His wife even said in an interview recently, or about a year or two ago, that she would open the windows so she should smell the burning of the car tires in the cars, the burning of resistance.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa. His daughter was tweeting out locations of National Guard deployments. When he finally did deploy them, he was telling them when they were coming and where they were going to drop them off at on social media. His daughter, I mean, in that insurrection, they burned police stations.
Jeez.
Several dozens of people were killed during those riots, and he allowed it to happen. Jeez. And he held off on National Guard for several days, then finally called him in, got it under control. So there was that side of it to him. Right after that, or right around that time, he was involved in the largest COVID fraud scheme in the country. He supported a foundation or a fund that basically frauded the U.S. government of $250 million.
Jeez.
And he has pictures of himself with the leader of that group in front of the state doors in Minnesota, in the state capitol. So there's that side of it. Nobody's talking about that, which is mind-blowing to me. I mean, your conservative stations are, because, you know, the leftist media, the left side of the media, they're not talking about anything bad with them because they don't want Trump. They don't like. Yeah, they're going to do everything they can to help. Which
doesn't matter. I believe is election as long interference. As it's not Trump.
Yeah, but here's another one. This is interesting. So he was in the National Guard for 24 years. Okay, worked his way up to a master sergeant in the Army. So it's an E7. No, it's an E8. E8. He was named the command sergeant major for his National Guard unit. But when he found out, when they got official orders to Iraq, he dropped his retirement paperwork so he could run for Congress. So he basically abandoned his unit. But here's the problem. The agreement for him to be a command sergeant major was that he had to go to the CSM school and fulfill the contract to be a CSM. When he dropped his retirement paper and left his unit, they demoted him back to master sergeant. So he didn't get his sergeant major handle. Here's where this gets crazy. In several of his speeches, especially a gun rights speech he gave a few years ago, he talks about how he wants to eliminate weapons of war and weapons like what he carried in war. He never deployed.
He never deployed them from the armory to the warehouse.
He said never in war. So there's one instance. On several of his bios, he talks about how he was a command sergeant major, except he never officially got the rank.
Oh, okay.
And he was demoted. He doesn't talk about that. Matter of fact, as of this morning, their campaign scrubbed his bio to remove any talk about being a command sergeant major, which was in there. Now it's gone.
Okay.
So this goes into what a lot of people talk about now. Is that stolen valor?
I would consider it. I wouldn't consider it stolen valor.
Okay.
Because I consider stolen valor someone who is absolutely not in the military at all, acting like they're in the military. So if he was technically in, but I would say it's a variation of stolen valor. Stolen valor. I wouldn't know what to call it, but do you consider it stolen valor?
So I have have a very different definition of stolen valor because I've seen a lot of veterans that were did serve in Iraq, padding their awards, wearing awards that they didn't earn. Very recently, there was talk about a congressman that was wearing a CIB, which is a combat infantry badge, which you don't get unless you serve in the infantry or in special forces. But the Army awarded it to him 9 years ago. Somehow, some way, he got awarded that. So he was wearing it. People made a big deal out of it because he was an infantry. I don't remember what he was.
So I can see that.
They came back and rescinded that, and he took it off because he would wear it on his lapel.
Yeah.
But I see stolen valor as, and I'm on the fence on this one, but I see stolen valor as somebody who pretends to have done something they didn't do in a combat situation or any situation, really.
I could see that. Like,
if you're walking around telling people that I carried a weapon of war and I don't want these on the street while I was in combat, to me, that's stolen valor. And that's punishable by up to, I believe, 1 year in prison. I mean, I believe it's a felony.
Yeah.
But there's other instances where he's protested at events and he's held up signs saying he served during Operation Enduring Freedom. I don't think that falls under stolen valor because he did deploy to Italy in support of OEF. So he served in the campaign.
Yeah.
You're supporting it. Yes, you did it out of Vincennes, Italy. I believe it was with the 504th, which I've been there. It's beautiful. But I don't see that as stolen valor. But when you say you carried a weapon of war in combat, you are stealing that. That's stolen valor to me.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Does that make sense?
It does. To me, it's kind of like, I mean, a little bit worse than this, but like, for example, people who are like, oh yeah, I was an all-state running back in high school, blah, 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 when they sat on the bench. It's a variation of that, but to an extreme. Like
criminal extreme.
People do that all the time.
But I blew my knee out in high school. I was going to go to college.
I honestly remember when I was in the military, people would talk about how great they were, had all these girls. I'm like, no, you didn't. You know, they're just making that up to make themselves look better in front of all these guys.
Because you know the guys that were all great with girls and stuff, they
don't talk about it.
They're bums now.
Yeah, that's just very true.
Nerdy, dorky dudes.
No, that is 100%. Like in high school, I was not ladies man, let's say that.
I would play it. Once a player, always a player.
What happened? I'm just kidding. No, but it's true. Most people that were like doing really well in high school peaked in high school. But at the end of the day, I guess technically, yes, you can call it stolen valor because they are lying about what they did. Is it the same as somebody just lying, saying they were in the military and they weren't? That's the worst variation of stolen valor.
I agree 100%. You see those videos all the time.
Oh yeah, people just
dudes that have the balls to go to Fort Bragg and go to gas station
shoes and all that stuff.
I saw a video like that. But I do, and it's interesting because it kind of goes to like what I've always said about the media. I feel like if you are regulated by the FCC to be on TV, you should be licensed.
Yeah,
and you should have some sort of an ethical boundary can't cross. Because if you look at it. Okay, so everybody's going after J.D. Vance, okay? He's the vice president. Here's what we know about J.D. Vance. We know that he grew up in a poor home, I believe in Ohio.
Hillbilly
Elegy is a movie about him, which I saw a lot of actors and actresses in that are extremely liberal that played in that movie. So they didn't have no feelings of him then. And that was right before he went into Congress. Or ran for his seat. So you can't tell me you didn't know he was conservative because you talk to conservatives, you kind of just know they're conservative.
Yeah.
They kill him for being a never Trumper at one point, which he was, no doubt about it. He's come out and said so himself. They kill him because they feel like he hasn't been in long enough and he wrote a book and they took some bullshit story that wasn't even in the book about a couch or something and they made that a thing. But he's got no. I'm not a J.D. Vance fan.
What was the couch thing? No, I know what it is. You know,
that's just it. Like they say it's on page 179 through 181 of his book, but it's not. There's nothing about it. It was a lie made up and propagated by the media and turned into propaganda used against him by candidates. And nobody's called them on it because they don't talk to the media. Yeah. But that's what they're killing him on. They don't have any policy, mainly because he hasn't created any policy yet because he's very new to politics. He was really only selected because Trump's kids told him to pick him. But you got all of this stuff that we just talked about with Walz, with Governor Walz, and none of them are talking about that except for Fox News, which again, I watch the news, but I try to get it from different sources. That's where I feel like the licensing and ethical standards will come into play because you start pulling the people off the air because you're putting out propaganda. You're not reporting And taxpayer dollars are going to the FCC to monitor these groups, and they can't do it because they fall into the guise of entertainment. Well, I feel like there should be a standard. I feel like there should be something put in place. I mean, I don't want to restrict First Amendment, but something's got to change because we don't have free and fair elections. If you have 3 news sources forcing you to like, telling you to like these people, 2 news sources, 3 news sources telling you like this person, that's not free and fair because we're not getting proper information. So we do not have free and fair elections in this country.
No,
we don't, period. Because the only way we know anything about these people is by learning through the news. The news isn't giving us the truth. They're giving us what they want us to know.
I would say the majority of social media, like literally everybody
But
watching
the great
TikToks
thing
and
about social
Instagram
media is that you can, if you sit down and do the legwork, you can find unbiased citizen journalists, I guess you call them.
100%.
Which I still don't like that because you have the influencers out there. But there's people, I follow a guy named Noah Blum at Neon Taser on Twitter, and he's very much calls it down the middle. He's great. He's got a podcast that he does. I can't remember. I don't know what it's called, but he does it with another woman that she is, I would say she probably leans a little more left, but she calls it like she sees it. So there are sources like that you can use, but not a lot of people have the time to sit down and nope. No, they want to turn the TV on. Okay, what are we watching here? What are we doing? And there's really nobody. Jake Tapper used to be really good, but man, he hates Trump so much. He's going to do whatever he can to bury him. But that's what I say. You don't have free and fair elections. And this type of stuff that Walz did should be highly scrutinized. He should answer for it.
I'm sure it'll come out at some point. But
they got to get in front of the media for it to come out.
That's what I said. I just
Fox
heard,
News is talking about it.
I just heard who he was or who the person getting picked was like yesterday. Like if you don't, I don't watch TV, put it that way. I watch the Olympics, but they don't really have commercials on Olympics. Like it's on Peacock. But ultimately I don't really watch, only time I watch TV is during football. Other than that, I don't watch TV. I just don't. So ultimately I don't hear about this stuff until like way later, unless I'm on social media. And I just heard about this guy.
Bad, man. Like I was watching a clip from CNN earlier and they were talking about this, about Walz. Very briefly, and they said, well, J.D. Vance keeps attacking on this, but what did he really do? He was he never was in combat. Yes, he was in a war zone, but he was on base and he did this job and he didn't ever see combat. Bro, are we seriously comparing a guy that lied about ever going to a war zone to a guy that actually went to a war zone? If you think, I'm going to talk to you. If you think for 1 second that going to Iraq and staying on a fob and never leaving the base is not combat, you are so full of shit because we got attacked daily by rockets, gate bombs. We had dining facilities bombed by suicide bombers. You're full of shit. If you think those are equivalent to each other, that's bullshit. And it's a cop out. That's where I think the media has got to be held accountable. Some level, whether it's removing the civil liability side of it, but then you impact the social media companies and the influencers from getting sued. I don't care. Like, I don't care if every influencer in the world, I love you, Cody, Brandon, Eli, all those guys. I don't care if every influencer in the world loses their job as long as it brings an equal opportunity for everybody to run for office and have the truth be told so that this country could run more efficiently.
Yeah. No, definitely people are just being influenced by influencers. And a lot of the times people don't even really know what they're voting for.
No.
Like I would say the majority of the time they're just, oh, who looks cool?
Party lines.
What's that?
They're either voting for Democrat or Republican, regardless who the candidate is.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And, I didn't get into politics whatsoever until Trump ran the first time. Like I'd never voted before that. I was never in an election. I thought I was a Democrat. Like I really did because my family grew up Hispanic, blah, blah, blah. I knew nothing about it, but I just thought I was Democrat just because I'm like, oh, it must be blue. Like that's what all the like Hispanics and, people, I'm small town Pearsall, like, most people are voting for.
Pearsall, really?
Hispanics.
I think it leans Democrat.
I wouldn't say, yeah, no, I think it does. I think a lot of people that grow up down there, just don't educate themselves. Like I didn't, and they don't talk about it in schools or anything like that. So most people grow up, again, Pearsall is not a very wealthy town. You got some people who are, I mean, there's a lot of good hunting out there, people that run ranchers and stuff. but I would say the majority, it's probably like, I don't know, like 60, 70% Hispanic. Most of those people believe what they hear about Hispanics and stuff like that. Oh, we're poor, we're blah, 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 blah. We're supposed to vote Democrat. I thought the same way. But then once I actually started looking into it myself, honestly, once I joined the military, met other people outside of my small little town and really started looking into politics and stuff like that, I'm like, far from Democrat. I'm like, I don't know how I ever thought it was that way, but people were brainwashed to be like that.
Probably aren't far from what the Blue Dog, the Reagan Democrats were. If you ever go back to watch the history, they were more, I would say, what now, centrist right leaning, because they didn't, like, the gun control thing wasn't a thing, and they were for, controlled immigration. And it's just funny watching all this evolve, like
kind of turn over
the flip-flopping by the Harris campaign, and then now this wall stuff. I think this is kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I really believe once they start kind of really digging into these candidates and they start talking to the media and the media can ask questions, the independents are going to be like they were really excited. Oh, we had a Democrat. It's not Trump. And then she said, what?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. And maybe they don't vote for Trump, but they're just gonna be like, I'm not voting.
What does she do to these criminals?
Oh, man. I mean, you could go down a whole rabbit hole of things, just like you can go down a rabbit hole of things Trump did or didn't do. But I think if you look at the last 4 years, and this is coming from someone, I find myself more on the center, although I have some right leanings, most of it, but I have some things on the left that I think, okay, that kind of makes sense. But when it comes to like talking about how what we saw the last 3.5 years versus what we saw 4 years before that, how could anybody in this country, unless you're part of the top 3 or 4%, think that you're better off? Like,
I think there's going to be a lot of people that flip from Democrat to Republican. I do. Flip to that. I think they just didn't like at all what Biden did. And I think they're going to like, look, I know we're Democrat, but we can't have this again.
I think it's not going to be people that flip to vote for Trump. I think they just don't go vote.
That's true.
I do think Trump still wins this thing. If you look at, I actually look more at sports betting, like betting odds, than I do Real Clear Politics or 538 or Nate Silver. All the sports people pretty much still got all the money's on Trump.
I would say, me personally, like, again, I always think down the middle, like, even though I know I'm on Trump's side, I always still think big picture. I'm open to both sides. The last time around, yes, I wanted Trump to win. I personally like Trump. Obviously, we already talked about that. But last time, I didn't think Biden was a better president. I thought Trump should have won. However, I saw how many people around me. San Antonio's blue, obviously. Mm-hmm. I saw a lot of people around me always talk about how much they hate Trump. So I was like, he's going to lose just because of that. They don't like Biden. All these people just hate Trump. I'm like, all right, name one thing he actually did wrong other than opening his mouth.
That's the thing, is that people really can't. Like, they always say he's a racist. Like, okay, name one thing he said that was racist.
Yeah. Well, even let's say he did. Let's say he said these racist things. What is something he actually did wrong to our country other than opening his mouth?
I think he handled COVID poorly.
He did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, did he catch up to his ways? Yeah, I think so. It took about 6 months, 5 months. But I think he handled COVID poorly, because you look at what Ron DeSantis did in Florida with COVID. He said, nah. About a month in, we're not doing this.
I was going to say, like, I wish I would have moved to Florida at that time. Like, I was so anti, like, this is fake.
But I think what happened in Florida could be a precursor to what we see in November, because going into Ron DeSantis' reelection campaign, a lot of people thought it would be really, really close.
Yeah.
It was a damn landslide. I mean, he won Dade County.
Yeah.
Miami-Dade County. That was blue for, I think, as long as I've been alive.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I do still think Trump wins. I think it'll still be close. The sooner the media gets Kamala Harris to speak to them, the sooner she starts debating, the quicker everybody starts to realize it's over.
Yeah. We can't have
But if they board her up and keep her locked up until the election, there's no telling. But I mean, think about it. Even the people that didn't want Biden and they were leaning towards Trump or leaning towards not voting, and then Kamala Harris comes into play, and now they're all Kamala. She's going to change everything. What is she going to change? She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had every opportunity to convince Joe or whoever to don't do this, don't do that, or do this, or do that. We'll make this better. We can do that. Nothing. She did nothing. She was basically not even present. Like, and you think now that going from vice president to president, she's going to be able to fix all this? No. Come on. What are we doing?
Make it worse.
You're going to make it way worse or not get better at all, and it just stays the same. And then what are you fixing? Like, I wish the Democrats would put a better candidate out there. I wish the Republicans would
probably
too.
going to try to raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour now.
So did you see what happened in California?
No.
Was it a number came out yesterday on Real Clear Politics that all of, they've raised the minimum wage to $20 an hour. 87% of all chains increase their pricings to offset the wage. I mean,
why do you think we're in this?
That's how it's going to work.
Yeah.
Enough politics talk. It gets freaking obnoxious and old.
And keep
Pretty
going.
big sporting event. Oh, I can do this all day long. So pretty big sporting events going on. As you've got the Olympics on in front of us. The U.S. almost just lost to Serbia in basketball. Came back in the last couple minutes.
No,
you been paying attention?
Yeah.
He lost.
That's what I was about to say. No Lyles. Oh, he's got COVID.
Yeah. Apparently,
I did see him after the race. He was on the ground. He looked like I was thinking no karma because he has been talking a lot.
He runs his mouth.
The 100, he clearly won. But, I mean, he didn't clearly win.
But he won,
If you know the sport, he won. But ultimately, I wanted him to win, even though he's talking all the smack, because I'm America. But ultimately, he didn't even get second. He got third.
So, I was reading it before I came in. I haven't been paying attention to the Olympics a whole lot.
I literally was watching it while waiting for you to get here.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you setting up the new studio. I don't know if this is going to be permanent, but it actually works out pretty nice.
That is better.
2 days ago, apparently he got diagnosed with COVID, which I'm surprised they let him run.
Yeah.
I thought COVID was the killer. Can't do anything when you have COVID, but he was wearing a mask after the race, ran the race. Apparently he looked really bad. Ended up losing. But I do believe, and I did look at the count, I do believe we lead.
Oh, we're dominating.
Gold. We lead in all categories. I'm not sure about silver and bronze, but we are kicking ass. Like always, America's back, baby.
Yeah. Did you have, I know you said you don't follow it as much. I've been waking up at 3 a.m. and watching Olympics. I'm diehard Olympics. I don't know. Track is probably my favorite sport. So I've literally been.
There's a joke there.
Watching all of it.
But I'm going to leave it alone.
Okay. Give you that. Which one?
Running. Never mind.
I was just going to say, you know what? Never mind. Is it that joke?
That's the joke.
Okay. But I actually did.
Swimming isn't.
I saw somebody, I don't remember which event it was. I think it was like the 200 for the girls. There was somebody from Mexico running. I was like, what? But that's different.
But dark humor saves lives, people. But we're not going to go down that road because I had a really good joke there too, but I'm not going to do it. But I'm not going to get canceled.
They actually got second in the diving competition for the men.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you see the Chinese synchronized diving?
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't even see the other person because it was so perfect.
Yeah.
Like, it was pretty badass. I watched a little bit of the gymnastics.
I was a little too good.
Of course, Simone Biles is she the greatest athlete?
I wouldn't say greatest
Michael
athlete.
Phelps, Simone Biles.
Simone Biles.
Really?
Yeah. I think.
Who has more gold medals?
Who has more what?
Gold medals.
Probably about the same at this point.
You think so?
I think, Michael Phelps has been caught by a couple people. Katie Ledecky, do you follow the swimming?
I don't think that's accurate.
Let's find out.
I'm going to look it up on the Google right now.
I could be wrong, but I think Katie Ledecky may be the one that caught up. Or at least she's the most decorated woman.
So, gold medals. It's not even close.
You
Michael
didn't say
Phelps,
gold medals. You said medals.
It's not even close in medals either.
Oh, no?
Michael Phelps has 23 golds, 28 total. The next best is Katie Ledecky with 9 golds, 14 total. So he's 14 off the pace. She's 14 off the pace.
How many is that total for her? 14 total?
For her,
Look at it,
14.
Oh, okay.
Man, Simone Biles isn't even in the top. There she is. She's 23rd in total.
Third?
Total. That's all countries and everything. She has 7 golds, 11 totals. So she's right behind Katie Ledecky. Michael Phelps is, of all countries, history of the Olympics.
But how many has he been in compared to Simone Biles?
I couldn't tell you. Well, 2014 and 2016. So 4, 8, 12, 16. Ledecky, let's see here.
So
12, 16, 20, 24. They've been in the same amount.
Really?
Simone Biles did take last Olympics off, but she's been in 16 and 20 or 16 and 24 too.
Yeah.
So he's got 2 more than her, but he's
dominating
4 times gold. So no, Michael Phelps, the GOAT. Greatest of all time. Could be in every sport because you won it on the world level, which Noah Lyles will argue that I'm right because he says you can't be a world champion in the NBA. But I think that's bullshit. Anyways.
Champion of what?
Yeah, champion of what? The world. But
That's
you're in the
funny.
United States. The best
That is
players
true,
in the
yeah.
world come play in the United States.
That is, but they're not. They're all from different parts of the world.
Because they don't have better leagues there than we have here.
Brazil was better. No, I'm just kidding.
I
Did
don't
you watch
think-
that game?
I don't even know.
No,
I did.
we just whooped
Now
them
South
pretty badly.
Sudan. Bro, that was an awesome story.
We lost in the 3-on-3 basketball.
We did get our ass kicked tonight, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was the females.
No, the Mills.
I thought women lost too.
Oh, okay. I
If
wasn't
Caitlin
watching.
Clark
I
was
wasn't
playing, we
watching.
wouldn't have lost.
Did you hear about the females?
No.
Worst attendance in Olympic history. They had a picture
Almost
of
like
Caitlin.
somebody was missing.
They have a picture of Caitlin Clark on one side and a picture of the team over here. And
Did,
said,
did Team USA, have the girls done good?
I honestly don't even know. I haven't watched any of their games, but the guys are doing good. But
Well, they almost lost to Serbia today.
yeah,
But we'll see. I mean, I think the Team USA men's roster is good. That's
Oh,
funny.
yeah.
I know.
They're gonna
I
win
just
for
didn't like
sure.
the whole Caitlin Clark not being involved. And Dawn Staley even said, she's like, well, if she was playing like this when we had our choice, she probably would have been in the. Nah, lady, come on.
Yeah.
We know why y'all didn't pick her.
do you? Again, I'm way into track. There's a guy Quincy Wilson. Do you know who that is?
Was he the Texas guy?
No, he's from I think it's Massachusetts or Maryland, somewhere up there. Bowles High School. He's 16 years old. He's starting off the 4x4 relay for us this year. He
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
he pretty much ran faster. He probably would have placed in the top 5 in the 400 that they just ran. Michael Norman was supposed to be the big 400 runner this year. He got 8th.
Is it true that if Texas, the state of Texas athletes were representing an independent country, we'd be like 5th in medal count?
Yeah, that's what they said. Yeah.
I know the University of Texas, Hook'em, have quite a few gold medalists.
Yeah. Shot putter. What's her name?
I didn't see
don't
any
remember.
Olympics in that list of gold.
Did they make it to the Olympics?
I don't think there's.
No, I think there's one runner.
I don't think they have goat roping in the Olympics. Shots fired, Kendall.
That's funny.
But I have been paying a lot of attention to football lately.
Yeah.
It's coming up. I think we're less than 35 days or something from college starting and 60, 50 something days from NFL.
We still don't go to quarterbacks.
Damn. No, I'm
Or a receiver.
I don't even know what to say about what the Cowboys are going to be this year. I think their offense is going to be great. I think their defense is going to be even better.
Oh, yeah.
USA just scored again in water polo. I think their offense is going to be a lot better. But I think their defense is going to be, I think their offense will be just as good. I think their defense is going to be dominant. I was talking to a friend of mine that actually works for the team. He's in the media side. And he was like, basically what he's saying is that the defense is disguising a lot more stuff. So one of the questions I was asked to him by another one of the guys on the radio show was, are you hearing confusion from the secondary? Because that's what Rob Ryan did. A lot of disguises, but there was no communication. He goes, no, nobody's missing anything. Like they're dominating. And then that starting left tackle, Tyler Guyton, has looked, he was sick the last 4 days or so, but he has looked borderline dominant against Micah Parsons. And since he's been out, Micah Parsons has been wrecking practices. So I think we're on to something with this left tackle. Doesn't look like Cooper Beebe, the center that was drafted, doesn't look like he's going to steal that center position from Brock. Brock, I'll remember his last name later. Not Lesnar. But Brock Hoffman, he's been playing lights out at the center position. Mozzie Smith, who a lot of people think he didn't live up to expectations of a first round draft pick or second round. He's either first or second. I think it was first round. Out of Michigan. He dropped a lot of weight last year, went into the season about 285. Now he's up over 300. And they said his get off is as fast, if not faster, than anybody else on the defensive line, including Micah Parsons. So I think the defense is really starting to look good. Trayvon Diggs is back on the practice field. He's off of PUP and he is back in pads and has looked very, very good. Prescott has looked outstanding. Trey Lance has not looked good. But I think they're still going to go with 3 quarterbacks. Funny enough, all the talk about Zeke and him being old and washed, it's looking like he's going to win that running back 1 position.
Yeah, I think he will.
And they said he's looked really good in camp.
I mean, I think getting pretty much kicked off the Cowboys was an eye opener.
Lit a fire under his ass.
Yeah, he didn't want to leave.
No, he didn't.
Nobody. Once you're a Cowboy, you don't want to leave
But I also think he's at a point in his career where it's kind of like, you know what, just go with the flow. Like I know someone said something the other day that they didn't think he was as passionate about the game. I don't think that's it. I think he's older, more mature, and I think your blocking up front is better. You're going to be better, and I think their blocking up front is better. Terrence Steele's coming off that knee injury the season before last, and I don't think he looked like himself until the last 6 or 7 games. And now he looks really good in camp. Tyler Guyton looks good. Tyler Smith looks fantastic. Brock Hoffman, Zach Martin, Hall of Famer. He looks amazing. The defensive line, they're going back and forth winning battles. One thing I want to keep an eye on is how they get the season started. Because I think the first 6 games are going to be the toughest games of the year. You come out of that with 3 or 4 wins, you can quite possibly see another 11, 12 win season. They come through there healthy. That'd be amazing. And again, I don't get my expectations too high on them just because they were one of the best teams in football last year and then got throttled in the playoffs against Green Bay, which I have a theory why. I think I know why it happened. I don't think that happens under this defensive administration, but things are looking really good. They got the Cleveland Browns coming up in about 5 weeks. That'll be interesting to see. I will give some props to Texas A&M, that old Connor Weigman kid, that quarterback. I've been watching some of his stuff in practice. He looks fantastic. He's evading the rush really well, giving his receivers space to make catches. He's been really good at kind of reading the defense, keeping his eyes downfield. If he can stay healthy, Texas A&M could win 3 or 4 games. I did see a prediction the other day that somebody predicted Texas to go 11-1.
Texas?
Yeah. And their one loss, A&M.
I saw that. Yeah, I was like, that one.
There's
no way.
Hey, I'm not saying A&M's going to beat Texas.
It could happen.
It could happen. Rivalry game. But if Texas beats Georgia, beats Michigan, beats Alabama, these blue bloods, these big time teams, they're not losing.
But it's like how we did last year when we lost to Oklahoma. But
Oklahoma wasn't terrible. And Texas didn't have that slate of games. Like, Alabama didn't. Look, they beat Alabama by 10 points in Tuscaloosa. That's badass. But
UTSA, we're going to whoop their ass.
Yeah, but do they beat Alabama in week 10? I don't know. I mean, that was a really good football team going to the end of the season. So was Texas. And they beat Texas Tech by like 50 points. But if you beat Michigan, you beat Georgia, you beat Alabama, and you go and you're the number 1 team in the country, which if you go 10-0 or 11-0, you will be the number 1 team in the country.
With our schedule,
Texas will be the number 1 team in the country. You're not losing to A&M. There's no way in hell, unless A&M is the second best, third best, fourth best team in the country, which I don't think that's the case. But you lost CJ Baxter.
Yeah, I was going to say we lost a couple people.
You have
Worthy.
Well, no. CJ Baxter. I'm not talking about guys that got drafted. I'm talking about going into the season. CJ Baxter was number 1 running back towards ACL 2 days ago.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. But you still have Reisner. You still have the other kid. I can't think of his name. He was a stud last year. I mean, I think the running backs are fine. I think you got a really good chance at.
Did you want Manning to play this year?
No. I like Ewers. I think, and I think Ewers' biggest downfall last year, I think, was his release time. I think he was too slow getting the ball out.
You think he'll be number 1 pick?
No, I think he's top 3. I think there's 2 other quarterbacks ahead of him. I'm thinking of who they are. I think the kid from Oklahoma is going to be really good. And there's another kid. I can't think of his name. I think the kid out of Oregon. But no, I don't think if they're 11-0, yeah, he's probably been in the running for the Heisman.
Yeah. For sure.
I don't think Texas runs the table. I think they're probably 11-1 or 10-2. They make the playoffs. They make a run.
We always lose to, remember when we lost to Texas Tech? That when, what's his
2008.
name? Yeah.
It was 2008.
We were undefeated. We're number,
yeah, it was 2008 when Blake Gideon dropped the game sealing interception on the next play. Michael Crabtree 38 yards, 40 yards out. Yeah, I remember. I remember.
Hope it's not one of those.
And then the next year we went to the national championship game. Should have won. We got Colt McCoy got hurt. Yada yada yada. Blah blah
Still
blah.
did good without Colt McCoy.
Yeah, I mean, I think no, we didn't.
We did okay against Alabama.
We held our own for a little bit. Then they walked us down. They took.
Yeah, I would say third quarter.
Yeah, and that ruined that quarterback, Garrett Gilbert. It ruined him. He never came back. He never able to play very well. Although he did go to the NFL, and he's still in the NFL.
Where's he at?
I don't know. He was at Dallas for a little while.
Was he with the Commanders?
Maybe. I know he's with Dallas for a little while. I know that, like, just looking at this roster and how it's built, they just picked up a big 5-star recruit that'll be here next year. I think this is a very good team. They'll make the playoff because it's a 12-team playoff now. I think they make a run. I don't know if they'll win a national championship. It all depends on Ewers. They've got the offensive line. They got the defense. They got the wide receivers. They got the running backs. If he picks up his pace of play and can deliver the ball faster, I think they're going to be one of, if not the best team in the league.
12-team playoff this year.
12-team playoff.
See how that goes.
But I've been watching a lot of their camps, a lot of the videos come out of practice, and him and Manning are releasing the ball at almost exactly the same time. And Manning delivers the ball just a little bit faster. And that's my concern with Ewers. It's always been my concern with Ewers. So if he can pick that up, I think.
That's why Tebow didn't make it.
There's a lot more reasons why Tebow didn't make it. Like,
before we go, predictions for Super Bowl?
Now?
Yeah.
No, it's too soon. It's too soon. Get me in like week 8. Week 8, I'll start hammering out some predictions. We'll put a segment together and hammer out some predictions. We'll talk about college and NFL. What about you? You got a Super Bowl pick?
Cowboys all the time.
You're the one of those fans? It's our year. Yeah. This is our year.
No, I guess top 2. Obviously, I'm always going to go Cowboys, just no matter what. I won't always go, but I really think they have the talent to be in the Super Bowl.
Agreed.
On the other NFC, I think San Fran will probably go back. On the other side, I could see a 3-peat.
Chiefs?
Yeah.
I will never say that that's not possible with them because they're just that good, but I don't think San Fran's going to be as strong this year.
No,
because I think it was
the Ayuk thing.
I don't think that changes it as much, but I think people started to kind of figure San Francisco out towards the end of the season and how to play them. I would love to see how this shakes out if the Cowboys play them this year. I think they do. But if
we don't play Green Bay in the playoffs, we'll go to the Super Bowl.
Last year?
I said, if we don't play them in the playoffs this year, we'll go
I'm
to the
not worried
Super
about Green Bay this year. I think
I wasn't worried about them last year.
But I know why we lost last year. And I think we fixed that. When you switch coverages, when you go from a press man coverage to a zone coverage in 1 week, because one of your starting quarters has a dislocated shoulder and your other starting corner is your all pro is out with the ACL. And you still had Deron Bland playing at an all pro level, but Wanye Thomas should have been starting over, what's his name? The older guy, with the long hair that got hurt. That guy.
Patriot.
Yeah, he played for the Patriots for years. I can't wait.
Gilmore.
Stephon Gilmore. Wanye Thomas should have been starting over him. Move Gilmore back to, into slot or out to the safety or position or something like that. But that's why they changed. They went to a zone and you got worked.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen under a Zimmer. That's a historically Dan Quinn problem. Go look at the 28-3 Super Bowl. Historically, he goes into with a game plan. He doesn't change his game plan. That's it. And you saw it the whole game. You go back to that game, you change your game plan at halftime, you get a chance to win because they went off and scored like 17 unanswered points and got within a score and a half of coming back. And then another long bomb to the tight end. Yeah, but no, I'm not doing predictions. But anyways, we've been at it for a while now. So you want to take us home?
Yeah. So again, this is a little bit different than our normal podcast. Again, we're both realtors and we don't hardly ever go deep into it, but we're really going to give you some information about what's going on in this crazy market. But again, at the end of the day, it's the right time for somebody. If you're looking to buy a house or sell a house or just do something in real estate, prepare for your future. just talk with the actual agent that knows what they're doing. You don't have to do anything right now, but put a plan together. And that's all we're trying to get out there is like, don't listen to the media. Media makes everything look bad all the time. With Trump, Kamala, and everybody, they always make everybody look bad. At the end of the day, we're just trying to bring back some value to our community and just give back. We love San Antonio. Well, he lives Lavernia, I think, but
most of my businesses, I'm about half. No, I know mostly San Antonio, but I do a lot of business in Lavernia.
But yeah, at the end of the day, we'll see y'all next time, and leave us some comments. Let us know where you guys are watching from.
Subscribe to the podcast
right here,
like down
somewhere
below. Leave a comment. I'm hoping he's gonna put these squares in finally.
Probably not going to happen, but we'll see you guys next time. Talk to you later.
Take care.